Yo, good evening, USA, International, Canada, Long Island, aka Strong Island, plus the five spots of Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, and Queens. This is your man and homie, G Money Stacks, aka the Gregonator, your host with the most, misunderstood lonely nomad, creator, YouTuber, Queens, New York native, who is also a New York Mets fan from the neck of the woods of Laurelton, Queens, New York. And yes, I am an unstoppable independent podcaster as well. So, you're now rocking with me by streaming and watching the 91st episode of the Sports Edition show Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks podcast. Live and direct in the comfort of my room, StreamYard, and alongside with YouTube. Now, let me explain why I am redoing this. I'm redoing this episode not because of the copy strike, but I did not get a chance to talk about the two games that I seen that ended up in a draw. All right, I'm going to discuss that in a few minutes, and I'm going to discuss that in a few minutes. And I do apologize to um the MLB Advanced Media. Um, so yeah, and the thing that kind of bothers me is, you know, we live in a world we live in a world full of hypocrisy in terms of the types of videos being uploaded and posted and whatnot. Like, you have people that do music, you have people who do movies, you have people who do sports that play clips and stuff, but to be on some crazy, 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 dumb shit. Like, seriously, like I'm not gonna stay on this shit for too long though, man. But at the same token, man, I think a lot of times, yeah. And I'm not gonna name any names on here though, man. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, let me continue. Let me continue here, man. And yes, if you miss any episodes whatsoever, please feel free to and go ahead and grab that subscribe button for me on the YouTube channel page, alongside with leaving a like and a comment along with the sports topic, along with the sports topics in this episode. And of course, tell a friend to another friend. Be sure to spread the word. Word of mouth is important. And and I'm going to get into a routine right here. This is gonna be Wait for this plane to pass. Hold on. All right. Let's start off with some rumors, shall we? Rumor alerts in the air. Let's get into. We're gonna get into it right here first, though, man. There's two rumors that I like to clarify too, so let's get into it. Um, and I hope you folks out there are having a good week. Actually, having a great weekend and stuff. Um, and I will remind y'all in regards to another night game by the New York Mets in a couple of minutes. So stay tuned for that. Um, let's see. All right. All right, let's get into it right here, man. Let's go. Rumor alerts in the air. Let's do this. All right. Let's get into it. Hold on 1 second. Let me gather my thoughts. All right, let's get to. All right. I saw this rumor. Hold on. All right. First rumor. First rumor we gotta talk about here. All right. According to Sports Not, while the New York Mets would love to add talented San Diego Padres pitchers Dylan Cease to their rotation before the 2025 season begins, which is not going to happen. Um, a new MLB rumor seems to end any chance of that happening. This has been a very good offseason for the New York Mets. They entered the fall and winter with several holes in their pitching staff. They addressed them all with a slew of signings, including bringing back fan favorite Sean Manaea and reliever AJ Minter. However, they also achieved two huge goals. First, to the surprise of many, they were able to lure away New York Yankees superstar Juan Soto with a historic $765 million deal, which I talked about episodes ago in episode 83. Then, after months of on and off discussions, they finally re-signed homegrown all-star Peter Alonso to a deal that worked for both sides, which I'll talk about even further in a future episode. For the most part, it seems like the New York Mets 2025 roster is set. However, there have been rumblings the organization would like to add another starting pitcher. And they have been linked to a pursuit of Padres hurler Dylan Cease. However, an update from New York Post MLB insider John Heyman dumps cold water on the possibility of a trade. Last year, Dylan Cease stat um, 14, 14 wins and 11 losses record, 3.47 ERA, 1.067 whip, 224 strikeouts, 189.1 innings pitched. And if the Mets are going to land Dylan Cease, Padres targets likely include Brendan Sproat, Jet Williams, and Luis Angel Acuna. Heyman wrote, the Mets wouldn't do a Sproat Williams combo for Garrett Crochet, which I'm glad they didn't. So no chance they do it for a rental, which makes no fucking sense. Sproat and Williams ended 2024 ranked as the top two prospects in the Mets farm system by MLB.com. Acuna landed at 12th in their final rankings, while Cease is a talented impact pitcher. He has never been an all-star during his 6 seasons in the league. Dylan Cease contract 1 year, $13.7 million. Um, Owner Steve Cohen has made it clear over the last year that he wants the organization to build its farm system up to elite levels while he is willing to spend big as we saw this winter, giving away elite assets for a good but not great pitcher doesn't fit the team's long-term strategy. Okay, Um, all right, another rumor that we gotta talk about here is this. And of course, a new report suggests the New York Mets could be eyeing a trade that cuts payroll costs, that also addressing a need heading into the start of spring training. This was a very good offseason for the Mets. They entered the fall. They entered the fall and winter with a clear directive to improve a roster that shocked many by reaching the NLCS in October. However, they had several holes to address in their pitching staff, along with getting better. While they did not go big game hunting on the pitching market, they did make several interesting additions to the staff and re-sign fan favorite Sean Mania. Then there's the fact that they won the Juan Soto bidding war in December, and then last week finally came to terms on a deal with the beloved All-Star Pete Alonso, which I will talk about in a future episode. This is crazy. However, the club would still like to tinker with their roster before the season kicks off next month. One area they still would like to add to is the bullpen. However, they have a ton of money invested in their roster. If they could cut some payroll and improve the team, that would be the best of both worlds. Well, a new report from Sports Illustrated New York Mets insider Pat Ragazzo may reveal a path to do both. So Starling Marte has a year left of his deal, $20.7 million. Um, in a new column, Ragazzo detailed how New York has been shopping outfielder Starling Marte since December. Hold on. Um, and while they were getting closer to a deal that would have sent him to the Kansas City Royals, the two teams could not get across the finish line. However, the organization would still like to move him to shed payroll and is allegedly willing to pay a large chunk of the $20 million he is owed next season. The Mets have been linked to rumored discussions with the San Diego Padres for a potential trade for either Dylan Cease or Michael King. However, Ragazzo claims some executives around the game believe the Mets could instead target reliever Wandy Peralta and send Marte back in the deal. Wandy Peralta contract 4 years, $16.5 million. Huh. San Diego needs outfield help, and Marte would certainly fill that need. Coming at half the price and only costing the Padres a reliever could certainly appeal to them, especially with Peralta owed over $15 million for the next 3 seasons. Player options in 2026 and 2027. Even if the New York Mets picked up of half of Marte's contract, they would still save a few million and add a rock solid arm to the bullpen. One who has previously done well under the bright lights of New York during a 2.5 year stint with the Yankees. All right, so let's go to. All right, we're gonna go to. Hold on, let me see. I want to go to. All right, I want to go to Juan Soto, man. I mean, I want to go to Juan Soto, man, in his first home run, and he actually did get a second homer as well. So let me go to. Let me get to. Let me get to that one right here. All right. All right. So now this was in game one of spring training game, actually. So Juan Soto could not have made a louder statement during his first at bat in a New York Mets uniform. The wait was short for the lefty slugger, who was slotted into the number 2 spot in the lineup between Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso for the Mets spring training opener. With one out in the bottom of the first inning, the superstar outfielder launched a two and one pitch from left-hander Colton Gordon over the left center field wall, giving his team an early 1-zip lead. According to StatCast, Soto's home run traveled 426 feet and came off his bat at 106.2 miles per hour. Soto, age 26, picked up right where he left off in 2024. In his lone season with the New York Yankees, he batted .288, .419, .569, and set a career high with 41 home runs in the regular season before helping the team reach its first World Series appearance in 2009. Wait, yeah, 2009. After the Yankees lost the Fall Classic to the Los Angeles Dodgers in 5 games, Soto joined the crosstown rival Mets on a 15-year, $765 million deal, which I talked about in episode 83 in free agency, setting a new record for the largest contract in professional sports history. With such a contract comes immense expectation, particularly when playing for a fan base that has been hungry for a championship since 1986. Though the Mets have not made a World Series appearance since 2015, they came close last season, pushing the Dodgers to 6 games in the NLCS. Despite this, Soto does not feel pressure to be the guy who bridges the gap and carries his new team to a title. I never said, end quote, I never said I could be the guy, Soto said during his first presser of the spring. You need a whole team to go all the way. When you look around, teams that win the World Series have really good players with youth and everything. I think it takes more than one guy. When asked how his team could handle the pressure of playing in New York, he offered a simple 2-word response: winning games. While the final scores of spring training games may not matter, Soto certainly made a strong first impression. In his second at bat of the spring, Soto came up with bases loaded and drove in a run with a fielder's choice, giving the Mets a 3-0 lead in the second inning. He finished the day 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs and was replaced in right field by Alex Ramirez in the top of the fourth as the Mets begun pulling their starters. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool though, man. That's pretty cool. Um, let me see. I do, I do want to talk about the David Stearns interview with the guys from Meet at the Apple, the New York Mets official podcast. He talked about a couple of things which I'm not going to be able to play here, but um, yeah, he talked about his reaction in terms of Juan Soto, and of course, a couple of key things: the Peter Alonso resigning, the long-term contracts, with philosophy, and roster flexibility, and of course and energy and chemistry as far as the vibes is very important when it comes to the clubhouse culture. And of course, he he talked about how the word ace has been used too loosely. And I don't think the Mets are going to actually waste their time looking for an ace. You know what I mean? Despite what happened with the injuries and stuff, which I'll talk about that even further in the future episode with what happened with Clay Holmes, what happened to Sean Mania. I'm not gonna have time to discuss it here. Um, and and he even talked about why Carlos Mendoza is the right manager for this team and over Craig Counsell. Craig Counsell doesn't understand the culture when it comes to a baseball team organization and teammates. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much what I took from that. When I listened to that episode, actually, y'all can check out Meet at the Apple podcast on every streaming platforms, which I will mention in my podcast juice of the week in a couple of minutes. So there you go, right there. Um, and let me see. Yes, I'd like to discuss Diego Mosquera and William Lugo for a second. Actually, when I saw that play as I'm watching the game, what impressed me about Diego Mosquera is that basically he basically dived for the ball and recovered and then threw the ball to William Lugo. Um, and he stood and Lugo stood on that bag as he caught the ball, which was which was one of the crazy plays that I ever seen in spring training. And this is what this episode is about: the crazy plays, but in a good way. You know what I'm saying? In a good way. Um, so yeah, that was pretty impressive of what I saw though, man. And um, I'm I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. It's just interesting to see. It's interesting to see those youngsters. Um, I don't think Diego Mosquera and William Lugo were going to make the regular season team roster, but um, you just gotta wait and see. You gotta wait and see with all the action. So there you go. Um, and yeah, there you go. I want to. Here's one I wanted to do actually. There is damn Wandy Peralta. Wanted to touch on him actually. I wanted to touch on him actually. Where is this? I wanted to touch on him actually, but let me see. Yeah, I did touch base on um what is it? I did touch base on Wandy Peralta a little bit, so yeah. Let me see what else to talk about. Let's see what else to talk about here. Oh, I also wanted to talk about the two games that I seen. Game 2 and I believe it was game 5. Two of those spring training games ended up in a draw, meaning that the New York Mets and the opposing team that they played with ended the game in a tie, which is this is not new. This is not new, man. You know what I'm saying? This is not new. This is not new at all. I mean, I've seen this many times. Even though the Mets did not lose those games, game 2 and game 5, but they did keep it together. They were in sync. They communicated as far as like the plays that they made. That's what impresses a lot of New York Mets fans out there, including myself, though. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and like I said, I will talk about another night game that's going to be happening on Thursday. I want to actually get into that as well. Um, so yeah, let's get into let me see. Before I forget. Let's get into let me see. Hold on a second here. Let's get into hang on a second here. Let's get into David Peterson. All right. All right. Um so next up on the 2025 pitching preview is David Peterson. Peterson was coming off a hip surgery following the 2023 season, which delayed his 2024 season start. However, he came back as one of the most consistent pitchers in the Mets rotation for 2024. He was 9-1 through his first 10 decisions and finished the 2024 season with a 10-3 record and a 2.90 ERA. While his strikeouts out of 9 dropped from 10.4 in 2023 to 7.5 in 2024. His whip decreased from a 1.57 to a 1.29, and his FIP dropped drastically from 4.34 to 3.67. Peterson had a 5-pitch arsenal last year consisting of a fastball, sinker, slider, changeup, and curveball. The sinker was his go-to pitch, throwing it 31% of the time, but he did utilize most of his pitches pretty evenly. The only pitch he did not throw often was his curveball, only throwing it 7.6% of the time, as can be seen on the graph. Peterson's selection varied over the course of the last 5 games down the stretch. The sinker and the fastball traded off as his most consistent pitch, and his changeup and slider changed off as his most prevalent off-speed pitches. Peterson really used all of his pitches to his advantage to keep batters on their toes. Give me 1 second, folks. The sinker was Peterson's most effective pitch in the zone. This pitch earned him a 26.7% called strike rate and tallied a launch angle of only 5.3, meaning that most often when this pitch was hit, it resulted in ground balls. Coupling this with his 7.5 strikeout out of 9 shows that Peterson changed his approach to throw more toward contact in 2024. This change in his game seemed to pay off as many of his major statistics resulted in better numbers. Peterson relied on both his slider and changeup for his off-speed pitches. He threw his slider 18.4% of the time, slightly more than his changeup at the time. Excuse me, at 16.4% of the time. The slider was Peterson's most effective swing and miss pitch, tallying a 14.8% swing and miss rate. These off-speed pitches were both effective in getting batters to swing and miss as well as inducing ground balls. Despite having a late start, Peterson really helped anchor the Mets starting rotation. While his approach on the mound was different, it resulted in success. He showed a bit of his true potential, reinforcing why the Mets drafted him as a first-round pick in 2017. It will be interesting to see what part of his game will stay. Will he keep pitching to contact? And what improvements will be made during the offseason to help Peterson mature to show consistency in this rotation? The Mets will need it with players like Kodai Singer and Paul Blackburn coming back from injury, and Clay Holmes looking to stretch himself out as a starter. Actually, I'm going to save that Clay Holmes conversation of the whole the new pitch that he created called kick change. I will talk about that in the next episode. All right. So y'all can get a better understanding on what it is and how it's effective and how did he perfect it. So yeah, there you go right there. Let's see. Dedniel Nunez. Let's go to him. Let's go to him. Let's go to um let's go to him actually. Um Hang on one second. All right, so New York Mets reliever Dedniel Nunez is not close to seeing any sort of game action as he continues to ramp up since recovering from an elbow injury, manager Carlos Mendoza said on Wednesday. We're building him up, he said prior to the Mets spring training matchup against the Miami Marlins. I don't think we're going to see him in games anytime soon. We're going to make sure that we take care of him. He's a guy that dealt with a lot. Mendoza maintains the hope that Nunez will be ready for opening day. The right-hander suffered a strained flexor tendon in late July last season, made one brief appearance in late August, and was shut down for the remainder of the campaign on September 13th. He had quickly developed into a key piece of the Mets bullpen upon making his MLB debut last season. In 27 innings between May 28th and July 23rd, he posted a 2.00 ERA with 35 strikeouts, finishing the season with a 2.31 ERA and 48 strikeouts in 35 innings. He was able to avoid surgery, which is good, which had been on the table through the early portions of the off season. Instead, promising progressions prompted a PRP injection. He then spent time during the winter throwing bullpens and live batting practice sessions in the Dominican Republic. A healthy Nunez is projected to get significant leverage innings within a reworked bullpen that should be more reliable than last year's resilient unit that often overperformed to help the Mets reach the NLCS. A healthy Edwin Diaz will be set up by the newly acquired AJ Minter, while the seventh inning role is up for grabs between the likes of Jose Buto, Ryan Stanek, who re-signed over the winter, and Reed Garrett. All right, so let me see if I forget anything. Yes, let's go to Andrew Carson. Let's go to Andrew Carson. All right. Let's go to Andrew Carson. Andrew Carson, where are you? Andrew Carson. Let's go to wait a minute. Andrew Carson, where is it? Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay. There is, let me see, who is, where, wait a minute, where is, okay, wait a second. Let me see. I'm trying to look for, wait a minute here. Let me take a look here. Wait a minute here. Yes, here we go. With just 6 days until pitchers and catchers report for spring training, the New York Mets made another savvy move to bolster their bullpen depth. On Saturday morning, as first reported by Mike Mayer of Mesmerized, the Mets signed high upside right-handed pitcher Andrew Carson to a minor league deal. Carson, age 24, played for the University of Tampa last year, recording a 1.06 ERA, 0.91 whip, and 5 saves across 34.0 innings pitched. Wow. This guy's really fucking good though. I don't think I've seen him in spring training though, but remains to be seen. Carson threw a bullpen session at Tread HQ earlier this year with scouts in attendance. He uses a unique arm slot at a 4.5 relief that allows him to get a strong variance on his 3 bread and butter pitches. During his session, hold on 1 second, I gotta sneeze. Yeah, sorry about that. I had to sneeze. Um, okay, where was I? Yes, during his session, Carson hit a max velocity of 96.9 miles per hour on his four-seam fastball with an average velocity of 95.5 miles per hour. The righty also has a curveball with an average velocity in the low 80s and a slider that averaged 85.7 miles per hour with plenty of movement. The 24-year-old joins a Mets bullpen that has done well to add depth in front of closer Edwin Diaz. This offseason, New York signed former Braves high leverage lefty A.J. Minter to a 2-year deal and brought back durable right-handed revamped rotation. The Mets will likely move Tyler McGill to the bullpen while also using him as a spot starter for injuries or rest. That leaves the front end of the bullpen, which still has plenty of question marks heading into 2025. With a strong spring training performance, Carson could find his way into a role with the team, although given his age and experience, he'll likely start the year in the minors for some extra seasoning. Yeah, you need time. Yeah, him and the other fucking players need time to fucking develop because you can't rush these. You can't rush these individuals. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want to bring somebody up out of fucking desperation. You don't want to do that though. And that's the thing that some Mets YouTubers who cover the New York Mets are trying to actually tell you folks out there. Like a fucking 1-year rental wouldn't be worth it. It's not worth it. And I'm gonna say this again, man, to the person who asked me why am I prospect hugging. It's not about prospect hugging, and it's not about being cheap either. It's about spending the money wisely. And you don't want to appear desperate just because you have multiple injuries and it's like the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? And you only got like what? You only got like a few days till the regular season starts at the end of March. So, you know what I'm saying? So, it is what it is, man. It is what it is, man. And I'm not gonna be the person to be nitpicking that it's the end of the world and people crying fucking wolf. Like seriously, man. Like it may not be the flashy names or anything like that, but come on, son. Like seriously, seriously, man. Let the whole fucking process of spring training / off season play out. You feel what I'm saying? All right, let me keep going here, man. Before I go on a tangent. Let's see. Carson started his college career at Bowling Green State University in 2019 before splitting the next 3 seasons between the University of Michigan and Michigan State University. Last year was his only season at the University of Tampa, earning him a nod as a 2024 NCAA All-American. Interesting. And let's see before I forget anything. Let me make sure before I forget anything. Let's see. before I forget anything, no. Yeah, yeah, in the first spring training game with the Houston Astros, they won that game. So they won the first game. So that's good. Let's see. Let's see. August best plays. Let me see. Hang on a second from 2024. Yeah. I forget to go over that shit too. I forgot to go over that shit too. Hold on. Yeah. So let's go over the greatest moments from 2024 of the Mets season. So, according to Metsmerize Online, by the measurement of time, it was a season. But if you compare the amount of incredible events to what you'd expect in a typical season, it felt like 5 at least. It would have been difficult to predict this kind of year for the Mets, before the schedule began, especially after starting 0-5 and pretty much inconceivable at the end of May. Just as challenging is trying to narrow down the best of these memories. But what a terrific problem to have. A terrific problem to have. So this is a good problem. Oh shit. To ease that burden, here is the sequence of moments divided into chapters, a fitting way to commemorate a storybook season. All right, starting with the pre-Grimace era, the Lindor flu game. Before this September, Francisco Lindor's presence in the lineup was an everyday occurrence. After exiting early on May 1st with flu-like symptoms, Lindor was not a starter for the next afternoon's game at Citi Field versus the Cubs, but he was the finisher. He entered as a pinch runner in the 6th and delivered a 2-run double. Then in the bottom of the 11th, down by a run with men on first and second, he went the other way with an extra base hit down the left field line. Brett Beatty and Harrison Bader scored easily. Even if Lindor was still feeling bad, he made Mets fans feel great. 4 RBIs and a walk-off isn't bad for an off day. Mark Vientos maximizes his opportunity. He made the most of his time in the majors, even when it was just for a few days. Mark Vientos' brief stint in the bigs while filling in for starring Marte might have had tremendous long-term effects. He hit a walk-off 2-run home run in the bottom of the 11th as the Mets avoided a sweep against the Cardinals on April 28th. About 48 hours later, he was sent back to AAA. It would be less than 3 weeks before Vientos got the call up again. It was an opportunity he never let go. And of course, who could forget Luis Torrens saving the day in London? A two-game series in the UK was on the brink of a 2-game Philly sweep before Luis Torrens made a play that was both intelligent and physically impressive. The Mets had rallied to take the lead with 3 in the top of the 9th and held a 6-5 edge with the bases loaded and 1 out for Philly. Nick Castellanos hit a weak grounder in front of home. Torrens picked it up, then stepped back and touched the plate. He heaved it to first just before Garrett Stubbs slid in and knocked him over. Pete Alonso handled the throw in time to complete the first ever game-ending 2-3 ground ball double play. Walk-off home runs, Francisco Alvarez versus the Orioles, August 19th. The young catcher endured a tough year full of injuries and slumps. So when he connected off of Baltimore's Sir Anthony Dominguez, Francisco Alvarez savored it. He was given the green light, a 3-0 count in a tie game. What followed was a no-doubter to center field, estimated at 421 feet. Alvarez didn't waste time to celebrate as Citi Field went wild. Mark Vientos versus the Reds, September 6th, now established as third baseman. Vientos was on his way to a 111 game performance, highlighted by 27 home runs and an 838 OPS. Perhaps the best highlight in this regular season full of them came as New York extended its win streak to 8. He started the Mets scoring with a 2-run shot in the first and ended it with a 2-run shot in the 10th. The latter was low and inside pitch that he golfed over the left field wall. The Mets won a big game and Vientos lost his shirt. And of course, who could forget Jesse Winker during the action with the Orioles on August 21st, 2 days after Alvarez's dramatics. The veteran who had been a friendly pest to Mets fans throughout his career unofficially became a true member of the Orange and Blue. Winker's first home run as a Met came at the perfect time. Dominguez was the victim again. This homer went nearly to the same spot as Alvarez. And like his teammate, Winker showed his emotions once it was official, stopping to slam his helmet before rounding the bases in full flow. Pitching performances owns Aaron Judge admitted the left-hander in the midst of a terrible season, pitching to Yankee slugger in the bottom of the ninth with a runner on and a 1-run lead, had all the makings of a Yankees walk-off. Everyone thought it, except maybe Carlos Mendoza, with a depleted bullpen and Edwin Diaz unavailable. The call went to a man with a 5.28 ERA to get the save. Diekman got judged to strike out looking with a 96 miles per hour fastball on the inside corner. He then retired Ben Rice to preserve the Mets' victory. Diekman was DFA 2 days later. Sean Manaea's development. After observing the Braves' Chris Sale, Manaea lowered his arm slot to mimic the fellow southpaw and possible Cy Young winner in the NL. From July 30th on, he struck out 83 over 75.2 innings as the Mets won 10 of his 12 appearances. Not only he was missing more bats, but he was providing length. He went into the 7th inning 10 times and posted 9 quality starts. He didn't allow an earned run against the Twins, Cardinals, and White Sox while unofficially garnering ace status. Manaea was one example of the remarkable performance of the rotation down the stretch, posting a 2.67 ERA. Severino, who's now with the Athletics, of course. Severino blanks Marlins. The right-hander wanted it. The Citi Field crowd wanted it. Complete game shutouts are rare these days. The atmosphere on this Saturday afternoon on August 17th reflected that into the 9th inning. Luis Severino was carrying his scoreless effort against the Marlins, but hit Jake Berger with his first pitch. Mendoza went to visit with his starter, and after a brief conference, left him in to try and finish it. Severino retired the next three batters to preserve a four-hitter. His 113th and final offering got Derek Hill to swing at strike three. Miscellaneous OMGs, pop star second baseman. While Grimace was the mascot of the Mets revival, OMG was the anthem. Jose Iglesias signing a minor league contract on December 5th went as expected, unnoticed. He arrived to the Mets first. His insertion was one of many catalysts to New York's charge, slashing 337, 381, 448, and ending the regular season with a 22-game hitting streak. Oh, and the singing career isn't bad either. His song blared each home at bat. Fans recited every lyric. A sign with the title letters was carried in the dugout and showed up among the crowd. And after a June 28 win over Houston, giving the Mets their 16th victory in the turnaround month of June, Iglesias transformed into Candelita and performed it live on the field. Who could forget Lindor's homer to end no? He did what MVPs are known to do. For much of this September afternoon game in Toronto, the Mets offense was lifeless and hitless. Blue Jays starter Bowden Francis cruised through 8 with a 1-0 lead. Lindor led off the ninth, fell behind 0-2, and proceeded to end the no-hitter and the shutout all at once. The homer to right field was the wake-up call they needed. New York went on to score 5 more in the frame and win the game. Exorcising the demons in Atlanta. The blast against the Blue Jays was Lindor's biggest home run for less than 3 weeks, entering the doubleheader of makeup games at Truist Park to conclude the regular season. Both the Mets and Braves needed one win for a playoff berth. Everything was pointing to a do-or-die finale when New York was down 3-0 through 7. But the Mets' resilience showed in the 8th. The six runs scored were an afterthought as Edwin Diaz gave the lead back. Mets fans thought went to another nightmare in Atlanta. New York's shortstop and face of the franchise dispelled all negativity with one swing of the bat. Credit of starting Marte for getting on ahead of Lindor's heroics. Edwin Diaz redeemed himself in the bottom of the ninth, and the Mets put champagne on ice. Postseason heroics. Still on the mark. The playoff stage really had an effect on Mark Vientos because it made him better. It was exciting enough that he had a great regular season. But Vientos became a star in October. He slashed 327, 362, 636 with a 998 OPS, 5 home runs over 13 games, and his 14 RBIs set a new Mets postseason record. 4 were collected on one plate appearance against the Dodgers in Game 2 of the NLCS when he finished a terrible at bat with a second inning grand slam. Masterful Minaya, the culmination of his second half adjustment came in the division series with Philadelphia. After splitting the first 2 games and hoping to finish it at home, Minaya made sure the Mets would have the edge. He honored his late aunt with a brilliant outing of 1 run on 3 hits and 2 walks with 6 strikeouts over 7 against a potent Philly lineup. Leading 2-0, he escaped a 6-inning jam with 2 on and none out by fanning Bryce Harper and getting Nick Castellanos to hit into a line drive double play, New York would soon break it open to get one step closer to the NLCS. Grand Cisco Lindor. Who could forget, man? Who could forget this? Citi Field had never seen a Mets clinching celebration. Game 4 versus Philly was that opportunity, but the offense was squandering their chances to score. Down 1-0 in the 6th, New York loaded the bases for the third time. With 1 out, the Mets needed someone to step up. Lindor had been the one to do it most frequently in 2024. So why not now? The 2-1 pitch was sent out and into the bullpen. It was the kind of situation he was brought to Queens for. He circled the bases like he expected it to happen. Surrounding him was the loudest cheer this 15-year stadium had ever experienced. 3 innings later, after a 4-1 win, it got to host the party fans had long been waiting for. And finally, the most memorable moment of 2024 is when Pete Alonso saves the season. Never say never when it comes to Pete Alonso. It may have been the best moment of 2024. It certainly was the best moment of Alonso's career. On a night when he tripped over his own bat, dropped a pop-up and prolonged his struggles at the plate. The Mets first baseman erased all those bad memories and so much more when he came up with two runners on and his team down 2 with 2 outs left in New York's season. Alonso has 226 regular season home runs as a Met. There might not be another, depending on how free agency goes. Regardless, he earned a special place in team history with his top of the ninth drive over the right field wall in Milwaukee. Yes, he did hit that home run. I don't think anybody's going to forget that, man. I mean, I think I think everybody underestimated Pete Alonso, man. Yeah, he had a bad year, but it can happen to anybody. Doesn't matter whether you're a superstar or a star. It doesn't matter. It can happen to anybody. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, these baseball players are fucking human. You know what I mean? They're not robots, like Brendan Nimmo said in one of the pressers at Amazing Day, which is true, and I agree. So yeah, there you go. There you go right there. And I want to go over 3 under the radar New York Mets X factors that can make a difference. Let's go over that. I want to go over that actually. Hold on a sec. 3 under the radar. Let's get into it right here. Sorry about that, folks. I was trying to get a little sip of tea and some water actually for my throat. And yes, the New York Mets have a ton of high-profile players. Who isn't excited to see what the trio of Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Francisco Lindor, aka Linsanity, can do next season? It's so funny that Gary Cohen called him Linsanity, which kind of reminds me of a former Knicks basketball player, Jeremy Lin, who got that nickname too. So You know, why not, man? Insanity of Francisco Lindor. Why not? Oh man. Yeah, so they are three of the most popular players in baseball right now. They have plenty of other well-known names like Kodai Senga, Edwin Diaz, and Starling Marte. Which, by the way, I will touch on him on that knee injury in a future episode. Um, which is probably why you haven't seen him playing in spring training. But they have plenty of other players on their roster who are flying under the radar. These players definitely get overshadowed by some of the more prominent names on the Mets roster. However, they could play very vital roles for the 2025 team. Number one, starting with Jose Butto. Jose Butto saw playing time in both 2023 and 2024, but finally got an extended look last season. Not only did Butto have a breakout campaign, but put himself in a great position to play an important role in the Mets bullpen in 2025. The right-hander worked both as a starter and long reliever out of the bullpen, putting up some solid numbers. Butto pitched a total of 74 innings in 30 games, 7 of which were starts. All told, Butto had a 2.55 ERA, 3.83 FIP, and 1.07 WHIP. The right-hander struck out his fair share of opponents with a 26.9% strikeouts. That's what K stands for. His 88.7 miles per hour exit velocity, velo, which is short for velocity, and 7.6% barrel rate were roughly league average, and he held opponents to a 0.73 home run out of 9. But he struggled to limit free passes and handed out a walk to 12.9% of batters. Butto's stuff played better out of the bullpen. Stuff plus put him at an 89 when he was used as a starter. When he was moved to the pen, he put up a stuff plus mark of 96. Butto averaged out at 94.2 miles per hour with his four-seamer while mixing in a sinker, changeup, slider, and sweeper. As expected, he threw harder as a reliever with his fastball clocking in at 95 miles per hour. On average, Butto showed he can work both as a starting pitcher and as a long reliever. When he made starts, he had a 3.08 ERA, 4.17 FIP, and 1.13 WHIP. He owned a 2.12 ERA, 3.47 FIP, and 1.00 WHIP out of the pen. That gives the Mets multiple different avenues as to how they can utilize Butto in 2025. Number two, Dedniel Nunez. I just talked about him. Is a late bloomer. He was originally signed by the Mets in 2016 out of the Dominican Republic. During the 2020 to 2021 offseason, the San Francisco Giants selected the right-hander in the Rule 5 draft, but returned him back to the Mets about a year later. Nunez then made his debut in 2024 in his age 28 season, but could establish himself as one of the better relievers in baseball next season. Nunez pitched 35.1 innings, working to an outstanding 2.31 ERA, 2.22 FIP, and 0.91 WHIP. The right-hander walked just 5.9% of batters he faced while striking out over a third of opponents with a 35.9 strikeout. 35.9% strikeouts. Although Nunez was prone to hard contact with a 10.1% barrel rate, he still held opponents to an HR out of 9 of 0.77 and 52.6% ground ball percentage. Yeah, I think HR stands for home runs. Nunez is primarily a four-seamer slider pitcher, as these two pitches made up 96.5% of his offerings thrown in 2024. He is a hard thrower, averaging out at 96.3 miles per hour with his fastball. His slider also averaged out at 87.5 miles per hour. Stuff Plus put Nunez in very high esteem at 111. That was the fourth highest on the Mets last year among their pitchers with at least 30 frames. Nunez is entering his age 29 season, and while he may be older than most players in their sophomore season, he could find himself as the Mets' go-to right-handed set man. Nunez looked fantastic in the 35.1 innings he tossed in 2024. He displayed great stuff, located extremely well, and struck out a ton of batters. And of course, Jose Siri. Number 3, Jose Siri, the Mets' first big acquisition of the offseason, was trading for outfielder Jose Siri from the Tampa Bay Rays. One thing the Mets know they are getting is elite level defense in center field. Last year, Siri had plus 12 defensive runs saved and plus 16 outs above average. It is the third season in a row Siri has had double-digit all double A's. All double A's. Let me make sure that get you up to. Let me see if I can actually break that down. Actually, yes, outs above average. That's what it stands for. So there you go. There you go. He was also the 99th percentile of sprint speed, 97th percentile of arm strength. Siri is a potential platinum glove candidate, but his bat in 2024 was poor at best. In 448 plate appearances, Siri slashed a meager 187, 255, 366 with a 271 WOBA and 78 WRC plus. He ran into some home runs with 18 dingers. A 179 isolated slugging percentage and a 14.6% barrel percentage, 94th percentile. But this is about where the positives end for Siri with the stick in 2024. He struck out at 37.9% rate with a 41.9% whiff percentage and walked in just 6.9 of his trips to the plate. But Siri did not have a poor year in 2023 while in the batter's box. He mashed 25 home runs in just 101 games and had a 761 OPS, 319 WOBA, and 106 WRC plus. Siri still struck out at a high rate of 35.7% and had a mediocre 5.5% walk rate. But overall, he was an above average hitter because of his power output. That combined with his elite level defense helped him put up a plus 2.6 F WAR in just 101 games played. Siri was the 14th most valuable center fielder in 2023 per F WAR and did it in just about 100 games. He still had a plus 1.9 F WAR in 2024 despite his lack of hitting. The only Mets outfielder with a higher F WAR last season was Brandon Nimmo at plus 2.7, which about matches what Siri did in 2023. But in 50 more games, if Siri hits just a little more than he did in 2024, he'll be very valuable for the Mets in 2025. By the way, man, he did hit 2 home runs as a Met. Now, I wasn't able to watch the games that he hit those home runs because they were out of the market. SNY wasn't airing it. So usually when a game is out of the market, it usually means that there's no TV sports companies actually recording all the action. So that's pretty much what that is, though, man. I can't wait to see more of what Jose Siri and along with other players do in the regular season. There's still plenty of spring training left to get everything together with the mechanics, the types of pitches, the types of approaches on home plate as batters. You know what I'm saying? You know, batters they have different approaches when it comes to being by the plate. They have different approaches. Everybody's approaches is not the same. So I just wanted to put that out there. So that way you won't really, So these are the players that can make a difference for 2025. All right. I want to get into where I could actually recommend on some sports podcasts that you could check out. Where you could check out though, actually. Yeah, there's some sports podcasts and YouTubers for you to check out. Let me just set this up right here. And of course, sports podcast of the week. Let's get into it right here, man. Let's get into it right here. Hang on one second. All right. All right, sports podcast of the week. All right, you know the deal. I'm gonna recommend y'all some sports podcasts and YouTube channels to actually go off of to check out. So, starting with Shays and Sons podcast, Till Mets Do Us Part, Subway is Shade podcast. There's Umpire State of Baseball podcast, Shea Station, Locked On Mets podcast by Ryan Finkelstein, Mets Up podcast, Believe in Mets podcast, CP's True Mets Talk podcast, Meet at the Apple, New York Mets podcast, Trevor May, Baseball Mayday, Mets Weekly, the Mets Pod, Mets Podcast, We Gotta Believe, the Call Up, and MLB Prospect Podcast. You can check out Top Bunk Sports and 7 Express Podcast, Couple Mets, Subway Subway Sports Talk podcast, Wardy NYM, a show about the New York Mets. Make sure you subscribe to Wardy's YouTube channel page. He's also a New York Mets fan. Wardy NYM. Mostly Mets Fix, and of course a little bit of podcast that's now on YouTube, which is First Time Caller, Long Time Listener by Laura Albanese, who you may see on sometimes Baseball Night in New York, and Mets Therapy, Digging Weekly, and Digging Deep podcast, and of course make sure y'all check out Empire State Sports Report podcast by Adriana. She also is covering the New York Giants, New York Yankees, and the New York Mets as well. And some more sports YouTube channel pages that I am going to recommend actually is, hang on a second. Hold on. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, Mostly Mets, 3 Innings Fan Podcast with Kelly Franco, Mets Fix, Mets Central, the Rico Bronya Podcast with Evan Roberts. Oh, man. And, of course, be sure to subscribe to the Locked On New York Sports YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Today podcast, which covers the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and NCAA. Mets Weekly, Foul Territory, Till Mets Do His Part, Subway Shade podcast, Subway Talk podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Dominant Mets Nation. He also does his homework on the news regarding the New York Mets. That's exactly what I like about him, man. And shout outs to Dominant Mets, man, for holding it down, man. We got Shea Station, the Mets Pod, Me at the Apple, New York Mets Podcast, Metcast. You got Who's Right Mets Podcast, CP's True Mets Talk Podcast, You Know I'm Right Podcast, Believe in Mets. I just mentioned Top Bunk Sports. Be sure to check that out as well. And of course, 7 Express Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to those channels as well. Also, Why Am I a Mets Fan Podcast. Be sure to check that out as well. Talking baseball, bourbon and baseball. First Pitch Daily Recap Podcast. Be sure to check out the Triborough Podcast, the Deferred Collusion Podcast, Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, Locked On Nets. Be sure to check that out as well. Be sure to check out Locked On NBA, Locked On MLB. Of course, check out Locked On New York Giants podcast, Locked On Fantasy Football, Nothing Personal with David Sampson, Early Game, Flipping Bats and Nerds podcast, Locked Up Sports, New York Sports Talk, TMZ Sports, Locked On New York Giants podcast, It Is What It Is podcast, Locked On College Football podcast, Locked On College Basketball podcast, and of course, Locked On NFL Draft podcast. All right, so be sure to check those channels and podcast shows out. As we wrap up here, hang on. Let me see if there's any more sports podcasts. Let me see if there's any more. If there's any more, I should actually remember. Oh yes, there is. So, all right. You have let me see. It's Always Amazing in Queens podcast. Let's see. Non-related baseball. You have Unapologetically Angel. You have Filthy Sports by John Campia. And let's see. Baseball America. You have let me see. Yeah, I did mention couple Mets. Check that out as well. Mets Daily. Mets Daily. Be sure to check out Mets Daily by Jake Brown, where he covers the New York Mets on each weekday on YouTube. All right. And you got Ringer NBA. You have NFL Good Morning Football and the TV version, Good Morning Football Overtime on My 9, weekdays at 12 p.m. on My 9. You also have National League Town, a Mets podcast. I did mention Locked On New York Sports YouTube channel, where you could actually see um your your favorite teams in New York. You have the New York Jets postcast, Locked On Jets postcast. You have the Locked On Mets postcast, which is also both hosted by Chris Schubert. And you can also check out Locked On Giants postcast, Locked On Yankees postcast, and also you can check out the recently latest added team, which is the Locked On Knicks postcast. All right. So postcast, for those of you who may not know, is basically different hosts are covering each post game that happens, whether it's in baseball, whether it's in basketball and football, you just name it. All right. Let me see if there's anything else I forgot to mention. Yes, Just Baseball Show for baseball fans. He Did This to Me podcast. Let's see what else. I did mention Baseball America. Be sure to subscribe to that. Digging Weekly and Digging Deep podcast. Be sure to subscribe to those channels as well. And Unpopular Opinion Sports Talk Nation. Let's see. And yeah, I think that covers it, man. I think that really covers that. Hang on a second. No, this is something else. No, this is something else. Let's see. I think I covered all the bases. I think I covered all the bases though. Yeah, I think that's it, man. Oh, I want y'all to check out Queens Bros Sports Podcast. All right. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I forget this guy's name. Oh, Joe. His name is Joe. He's the host of Queens Bros Sports Podcast. He was a guest on Anthony Rivera's Subway to Shade podcast recently. So be sure to check him out. Give a like, subscribe, share, all that great stuff right there. So there you go, right there. If there's any other sports podcast I didn't add to this list, I will add that in the future. So don't you worry. I got y'all covered. All right. I think I'm going to wrap up here, man. I don't think I have anything else to actually cover. So that pretty much sums up the topics in this episode. I would actually gladly wrap up right here. Let me see, make sure it's just three choices. All right, I'm gonna wrap up right here with this. Stream choices on the go. Let's go. All right. Make sure you follow the Sports Edition Show, Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks podcast on Blue Sky Social, Facebook, Threads, and Instagram, alongside with my other podcast shows that's also on Blue Sky Social, Facebook, and Threads and Instagram, which are the Entertainment Review Show, Meticulous Vibe Juice Podcast. And I am going to mention Off the Meat Rat Chains New York Avenue podcast, my comedy show that's also on those platforms as well. You can follow those two along with my sports podcast that I just mentioned, and of course follow your host with the most, G Money Stacks 555 in Queens, New York. And if you like to check out the episodes on every streaming platform, you can do that by going to the link in bio where it says Linktree/Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks Pod. And in that, you're going to see a whole list of other streaming platforms that you can listen to. You can download it onto your iPhones, Android phones, iPads, Android tablets. You can even download it onto your laptops, which includes Apple Mac and Dell laptop models. Any model that comes with Windows 10 or Windows 11, whatever Windows level you have. I will talk about Windows 10 phasing out in my comedy show, Off the Meat Rat Chains New York Avenue podcast future episode. So I got y'all with that. Yes, so starting with Audible, Odyssey, Amazon Music, Breaker, Bullhorn FM, Castbox FM, Deezer, Listen Notes, Moon FM Podcast, Overhaul FM Podcast, Player FM, Pocket Cast, Podfriend, Podhound, Podopolo, Podorama, Podcast Index, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Podverse, Podcast Guru, Podvine, Snip, Spotify for Creators. You can also comment in Spotify for Creators. In case you don't know, Spotify for Creators has a feature where you can comment on the episode topics, the episodes in sports, the topics in sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, or whatever sport it is. All right. And of course, you can listen on TuneIn Radio, Fountain, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, the number one app where you can listen to your favorite singers, rappers, hip hop artists, radio stations, and of course, podcasts and episodes for free. You don't need a credit card or debit card to download iHeartRadio. All you need to do is follow Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks podcast on iHeartRadio, the sports edition platform that I am doing, along with the other streaming platforms that I just mentioned. And of course, make sure you subscribe on the sports YouTube channel page so you don't miss out on more video podcast episode live stream recordings. Leave a like and a comment along with the sports topics in this episode. Tell me what you think about the sports topics in this episode. And overall, tell me how you feel about spring training so far. Even though the Mets didn't win game 2 and game 5, that ended in a tie draw. All right. And you can also spread the word by telling a friend to another friend. And add the podcast to your playlist, whether you are on the go, whether you are going to classes, work, and other destinations, or you can listen to the episodes on the way back from work, classes, and other destinations in the comfort of your home. And also, I want to mention you can share the Linktree link with your husbands, your wives, your boyfriends, girlfriends, the people you're cool with from work, and all that great stuff right there. And of course, new episodes are going to be dropping on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays on every streaming platform, including YouTube, wherever you get to listen, stream, and watch your podcast. All right, man. I'm about to sign off. I'm about to get up out of here. I'm your host with the most, G Money Stacks, aka the Gregonator, and thank you very much for listening to this episode 91, titled "Crazy Plays," which we talked about the crazy plays in a good way, as far as like getting outs and home runs by Juan Soto. He did hit his second homer like Jose Siri did. They both did, and I think they do. I think they do an incredible job of you know a little bit of defense and all that other stuff. So yeah, remember, the grind doesn't stop. Hard work pays off. If you want something, you have to earn it. It's not going to be given to you on a fucking silver platter. And of course, be on your P's and Q's in whatever talent, skill you have. And if you are planning on starting a podcast, be sure to be on your P's and Q's by creating more content, more episodes. The more episodes you put out, the better you are going to gain success. Creatively, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, that gets you into your zone alongside with tunnel vision. You're not going to have a manual in terms of following your own path, and your own journey. All right. Now, I want to actually say, like I always say, man, it's not about being cheap. It's all about doing the best you can by spending wisely and getting a 1-year rental and training the whole farm for one pitcher, like they try to avoid with Garrett Crochet, Luis Castillo, and along with Dylan Cease. It is not worth it. It is not worth it because it takes years to build a farm system for the New York Mets, especially in the minors and Triple A and Double A and other areas. You know what I mean? And look, I am looking forward to more games to watch. And I want to remind y'all about a night game that's happening on Thursday. Let me make sure I look for that as well. Actually, let me see. Let me make sure I look for that. Actually, hold on. Let's see. That's a good thing I mentioned this too, man. Hold on. That's a good thing I mentioned this actually. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. I know I had it actually. I know I had it. Hold on. Yes. Here we go. Let me see. What is it? What's going on for March? March. March 6th. Yes. So tune in Thursday coming up, March 6th. The Mets take on the Houston Astros at 6:10 p.m. Eastern on SNY. All right? That's Thursday, March 6th at 6:10 p.m. Eastern when the Houston Astros take on the New York Mets at Port St. Lucie. I believe that's either a home game or an away game. I could be wrong, but there you go right there, folks. Now look, man. That's going to do it for me, man. I do apologize for redoing this episode. It was due to the fact that I didn't get a chance to talk about those two games that I seen that ended in a tie, which is a draw. That's what it is, a draw. So forget about the copyright strike, man. I'm not letting that stop me. You know what I mean? I'm not letting that stop me because I'm going to delete the other one anyway. So there you go. There you go right there, folks. Yeah, there's not going to be a podcast recording this Thursday coming up because of the Houston Astros versus the Mets game that I have to watch. So, I'm about to be out of here. I appreciate every single one of y'all, especially those who took a chance on me. And shouts to Dominant Mets for subscribing to this channel. I appreciate that very much. And when I mentioned to him about the spring training schedule, I will actually gladly mention about the giveaways in a future episode whatsoever. And I will mention about what's going on behind the scenes with SNY partnering with MLB on an app and why SNY is going to be phased out on its own app. So stay tuned for that. You could have listened to any sports podcast show in the world, but you chose to listen to this sports podcast right here. Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks podcast. I'll be back with the next episode, new sports topics, everything else in between. I will be talking about Clay Holmes and this new pitch that he created, which is the kick change. I will explain that in the next episode. Stay tuned. I'm out of here. Peace and one love. Peace and one love. Let's go, Mets. Let's go fucking Mets. Let's go, Mets. Good night, everybody.